My name's Perrin McNeilis, and I'm the Native Plant Program Manager at Borderlands Restoration Network. I've been here for about 9 years. A number of reasons why we would use a seed bank for XC2 seed conservation. One being that if we have a population of something that we want to preserve, both that species but also those particular genetics of that species, it can be helpful for banking those seeds so that if any kind of climate change related impact affects that population and affects the soil seed bank, then you have this kind of backup. But I would say in general, I actually stray away from calling our project a seed bank, mainly because I think of seed bank as holding on to seeds for that kind of potential future need. And all of our seeds we really try to push through. The goal is to not store them, the goal is to have them on the landscape, providing the ecosystem services that plants can provide and to reseed. So I usually think of ours more as a temporary storage facility. We focus on wild or non-cultivated native plant species. We are focused on maintaining and protecting the biodiversity in the Madrean archipelago ecoregion. So we're really focusing on mid-elevation species with a focus on plants that have high habitat value. So a lot of times we're thinking about nectar plants, we're thinking about the nectar landscape in terms of what is blooming when and what the kind of flower morphology and color is, to really try to make sure there's food sources for pollinators throughout the whole all seasons. And then in addition to that, our bread and butter is really plants that provide ecosystem services in terms of erosion control, carbon sequestration, and oftentimes those are native grasses and other forbs that like disturbance or disturbed soils. So sometimes those can be like more quote-unquote weedy native plants, and those are just great for restoration. I like our seed storage setup because it is pretty low cost, low tech, and I feel like it's a model that can be adjusted for all kinds of different settings. But really all it consisted of was kind of framing out the interior of that space, putting a moisture barrier, I think, as a base layer, and then putting a few layers of rigid foam insulation. And then really the most expensive part for us is the air conditioning unit, a window AC unit, and a cool bot, which basically just tricks the AC unit to run continuously so that you can set it at a lower temperature. So an AC unit, you can only set it to 55, 60 degrees maybe at the lowest, and so you can use the cool bot to set it down to like 30 to 35, 40 degrees is what we have ours at. So we basically moved into our new seed barn, our new seed storage and processing facility, and we basically took that initial seed storage and just moved it into this trailer. So the trailer was also slightly insulated, didn't have any windows, and so we basically just resized all of the foam to fit exactly on the inside of the trailer. Trailer already had a door. We added the refrigerator plastic flaps to help keep it from warming too much when people are going in and out. And then the costs, it's like AC units, depending on how much you're willing to spend initially, they do have a lifespan. We actually just had to replace ours this year, and so that's an expensive item. The CoolBot is still running. We've had to replace a couple sensors on it. Those are maybe like $40 a piece, but the unit itself seems to last like a long time. And the trailer we bought from Native Seed Search, it was an old intern trailer. So we do a lot of in-house restoration projects where we are working with different land managers, but we're the primary project designer, and we apply for some kind of grant funding to support a project that is implemented by us. So we're collecting seeds that oftentimes are then used in seed balls or seed pellets that are applied by a watershed restoration crew in conjunction with erosion control structures to help revegetate eroded channels in dryland ecosystems. And then additionally, we oftentimes provide seeds for land managers to use in their restoration projects, usually public lands like Forest Service, Park Service, Bureau of Land Management. Those are kind of the three big agencies that we work with a lot. And then we also do partner with private landowners, usually ranchers, for specific grants to work on revegetation. I think this is a little bit different than you see with some of the like cultivated seed conservations, where you have an accession that you grow out however many seasons. A lot of our seeds are like directly used in restoration projects, and so they aren't produced agriculturally, but we are starting to try to shift towards doing smaller quote-unquote wild collections to then use to like bulk up the seed in an agricultural setting. So, having 10,000 seeds, each one potentially being a parent plant that can produce 1,000 more seeds, you can exponentially kind of increase your seed without putting as much pressure on those parent populations. But if you're collecting that seed to then further expand that plot, so collecting it and then planting it and letting those plants grow, and then collecting that seed and planting it and letting those plants grow, after, say, 3 generations is pretty common in our industry, you're starting to select for more domesticated seed. And because we're focused on ecotypes that are going to be really resilient to the unique conditions in our wild systems here, we really want them to not be too babied, and we don't want to select for an agricultural setting where they're getting a lot more water, and maybe they're getting that landscape fabric to reduce competition from weeds. So you really don't want to like expand your plot using more than 3 generations. For seed collection, I would say unpredictable rainy seasons is a huge challenge, so it's really hard to set yourself up to be committed to collect a certain amount of anything any given season if you don't know what the monsoon rains are going to look like. That can be really tricky. Cleaning and storage, all of our cleaning right now is manual for the most part. We have some mechanization options, but we need more like little screen implements in different sizes to really make our like mechanization efficient and useful. So for now, with a lot of manual cleaning, we rely on a lot of, a very small staff with a bunch of elderly volunteers who are absolutely wonderful, but it's really hard to do more than 3 hours at a time of extremely dusty manual seed cleanings. And then in terms of growing the seeds out, the biggest challenge for us, I think, is really weed pressure. So having potentially like invasive plants mixed in to plants that you're trying to use for restoration is just not what you want at all. And so how do we mitigate some of those pressures, both so that we can like avoid having the weed seed in any of our harvests, but also so that we can put our, the seeds that we are trying to grow out in the ground and they won't be outcompeted by Bermuda grass or something. So that can be a challenge. If you can be like creative and thrifty with it, I feel like if you have a space, or if you can buy some kind of like cheap trailer, one of those that somebody has gutted with the intention of revamping their like travel trailer and then they don't do it. You find them on Facebook Marketplace all the time. I feel like it's something that you can do in a pretty affordable way. I will say some things to think about are, getting it sealed as well as possible, because the energy costs of running the AC unit, that's the most costly part. But otherwise, I feel like it's a fairly affordable setup.